starts to recover, making you miss out on the things you enjoy most. Just one dose of the Prevnar 13 vaccine can help protect you from pneumococcal pneumonia. It's not a yearly shot. Prevnar 13 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 13 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Don't get Prevnar 13 if you have had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Those with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. The most common side effects were pain, redness and swelling at the injection site, limited arm movement, fatigue, headache, muscle pain, joint pain, less appetite, vomiting, fever, chills, and rash. Prevention begins with Prevnar 13. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 13.
We are going to start with something different tonight. This is one of those things that you have not been otherwise hearing about in the news, but stick with me.
Feed your mind with fresh perspective. Get your favorite MSNBC shows now as podcasts.
Welcome back. The government is back open for business for 3 more weeks anyway. Well, the president's still demanding his border wall, but taking some heat from some of his strongest supporters for ending the shutdown without any promises for wall funding. Here's Ann Coulter and Lou Dobbs.
I promised you the country would be run much better if I had a veto over what Donald Trump. Crazy that I expect a president to keep the promise he made every day for 18 months.
This president said it was going to be conditional, border security, building that wall, and he just reversed himself. That's a victory for Nancy Pelosi.
Okay, there's also this tweet from Tommy Lahren saying, President Trump just allowed Nancy Pelosi to walk all over him. I want to bring in now Zerlina Maxwell, Director of Progressive Programming for SiriusXM. She had previously worked for the Clinton campaign, and Republican strategist Rick Tyler. Both are MSNBC political analysts. All right, welcome to both. Starting with you, Rick.
Good morning, Francis.
Good morning, good afternoon in some parts. President Trump is clearly not happy with the response to his decision. He tweeted actually last night saying that this is not a concession. So where does it go from here? How do you see this playing out, Rick?
Well, remember, Donald Trump dispensed with 16 Republican challengers and Hillary Rodham Clinton, and this is the first time any politician has actually understood how to beat Donald Trump, and that is Nancy Pelosi. Now, I've never been a fan of Nancy Pelosi, but you got to hand it to her. She not only bested him on the State of the Union, she got Donald Trump to back down on the shutdown, and this is a game changer, because what Nancy Pelosi has done is she's ripped away the veil. She's gotten to the core of Trump's identity, his self-proclaimed deal maker image, tough guy, never backs down, and he got her to back down. It's never going to go back for him. And there won't be any more shutdowns. Donald Trump understands that. He's currently at a 37.58 approval rating. He was at 40.53 when he lost the House. So he's not going to go back there, and the Republicans in the House and the Senate are not likely to go back there with him either.
Interesting how you put it that way, and seeing that he really can't turn this around. Angelina, was there anything that Democrats gave President Trump, anything of substance in this deal, or do you still expect them to just stay firm, not budge at all when it comes to the border wall?
Well, I think the lesson they learned from this latest fight is that they should hold firm. And I think that what we saw in the last few weeks is the consequence of Democrats taking back one of the chambers of Congress. And I think that, America a message to Donald Trump in November. It just took him until yesterday to figure out what that message was, which is we want a check on your incompetence, really, and a check on the power of the presidency. He should not be able to just shut down the government in a temper tantrum because Mexico's not going to pay for the wall like he during the campaign. And, I never thought I would say I agree with Ann Coulter, but she's right. He said this on the campaign trail every single day, and we all for the last month pretended that he did not. And I think what the reality check that he got yesterday is that the Speaker of the House is the position that wields a lot of power. And finally, Donald Trump is going to have to go toe-to-toe with somebody, unlike Paul Ryan when he was Speaker, who actually is going to demonstrate how the levers of power in government work. And that's a healthy thing for the country, because it was completely ridiculous for the past 2 years to watch the Republicans essentially just be an extra arm of the White House. They're a co-equal branch of government, and Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker, is demonstrating what that is supposed to look like.
We saw that even with a stand down when it comes to the State of the Union address as well. So, Rick, when you talk about this, and you talk how he's getting pummeled in the headlines today, calling it a surrender, he caved, a defeat. And you mentioned the polls as far as him dropping, but could this hurt him even more? And especially, where does this stand with his base?
Donald Trump has a choice to make. He can continue to oppose Nancy Pelosi and get beat, because he will get beat, because she's, as Zerlina pointed out, she controls one half of a co-equal branch of government. Or he can do what presidents have done historically, which is figure out how to make a deal with Nancy Pelosi where they both get something. Ronald Reagan was getting killed on Social Security because he wanted to reform it. And he was getting beat so badly, he went to Tip O'Neill, they struck a deal, they both got to claim victory, both for their base, and we got Social Security reform. That's the way this government works. So remember, Bill Clinton had a terrible first 2 years, and after Oklahoma City, he actually became president and won re-election. I don't know if Donald Trump is capable of doing that, but he needs a reset moment, and it could happen right now if he figures out how to work with the Congress to get things done. Otherwise, he's setting the Republican Party up for catastrophic losses in the 2020.
Here for the president?
No, for doing the right thing 35 days after he should have been 5 days ago. And the same is true for Leader Mitch McConnell, who also could have made a deal 35 days ago and passed the bill that they passed before Christmas. And so I think that Donald Trump lost here. We just have to own up to the fact that it's a loss for Donald Trump, but it's a win for the American people and the people who are now going to be able to go to the grocery store and get groceries.
But we're also going to be watching that scorecard very, very closely when it comes to the weeks,
Call
February
them.
15th, right?
Phone. Ready.
Let's see what happens then.
Number
Ghislaine
unknown.
Maxwell, Rick Tyler, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
It is a new article in today's New York Times. Trump and his associates had more than 100 contacts with the Russians before the inauguration. We'll talk with our legal experts about it. And former Trump campaign advisor Sam Nunberg talks to me about the Roger Stone indictment.
To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
In an era of online retail where everything is just a few clicks away, buying a car is different. That's why at Carvana, you can buy a car 100% online. We made it easy to browse, view, and buy from over 10,000 cars. You can even trade in your old car, all while binge watching your favorite TV show. Afterwards, we'll deliver your car to you, or you can pick it up from one of our car vending machines. Either way, your car comes with a 7-day return policy. So grab a seat, relax in your comfy pants, and enjoy the new way to buy a car at Carvana.
Okay, Max, time to help Mrs. Tyler reach her health goals. I'm in. But first, Shelfie. Oh, yeah.
The great tasting nutrition of Ensure, with up to 30 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure, for strength and energy.
It's tough to quit smoking cold turkey. So Chantix can help you quit slow turkey. Along with support, Chantix is proven to help you quit. With Chantix, you can keep smoking at first and ease into quitting. Chantix reduces the urge, so when the day arrives, you'll be more ready to kiss cigarettes goodbye. When you try to quit smoking, with or without Chantix, you may have nicotine withdrawal symptoms. Stop Chantix and get help right away if you have changes in behavior or thinking, aggression, hostility, depressed mood, suicidal thoughts or actions, seizures, new or worse heart or blood vessel problems, sleepwalking, or life-threatening allergic and skin reactions. Decrease alcohol use, caution driving or operating machinery. Tell your doctor if you've had mental health problems. The most common side effect is nausea. Quit smoking. Slow turkey. Talk to your doctor about Chantix.
Life should be about amazing experiences.
but student loans were holding me back. Then I found Credible.com. I got actual rates from a bunch of lenders in about 3 minutes. They helped me refinance my student loans and lower my payments by $600 a month. I got things that I want to do in my life, and thanks to Credible.com, now I can.
Visit Credible.com to see how much you could save on your student loans.
Hi, I'm Jesse. And I'm Ben. We started Hubble because contact lenses are too expensive. At Hubble, our fresh daily contacts are affordable and delivered straight to you. Get 30 lenses for $3 at HubbleContacts.com.
I'm not ready to lose my hair. Not now. But I never thought there was a real solution. Now I use Keeps, the easiest way to keep my hair. And I can get my treatment without leaving the couch. Go to Keeps.com to learn more.
Blowback for the president in the wake of the shutdown deal, what it could mean for new talks to keep the government open. The Roger Stone indictment and how much peril the president is in from it.
I intend to fight because this indictment is fabricated. This indictment is thin as can be.
Plus, the new questions being raised about Jared Kushner's top secret security clearance. Good day from MSNBC World Headquarters in New York. Welcome to Weekends with Alex Wood. I'm Francis Rivera, in for Alex. New today, longtime Trump friend and advisor Roger Stone talking to NBC News outside of his home in Florida one day after the special counsel charged him. And here's what he said just a short time ago.
This was an egregious by Mr. Mueller. The FBI director who had to have approved this raid should, in my opinion, be fired over it. Because it was unwarranted. I guess it's an effort to intimidate me, but I am not intimidated. I am concerned for my life, and one of my dogs is still traumatized, will not come out from under the bed, and won't stop shaking. The allegation that two campaign officials instructed me or inquired of me about WikiLeaks is false.
Red Stone denying one of the most consequential allegations from his indictment. Prosecutors writing that, quote, a senior Trump campaign official was directed to contact Stone about any additional releases and other damaging information WikiLeaks had regarding the Clinton campaign. So the question now, capturing the political and legal world, did then candidate Donald Trump give that directive? Stone denies Trump was involved in talks about WikiLeaks, and the president denies any collusion. Roger Stone is set to appear in court on Tuesday. He was charged with 7 counts of lying to Congress, obstruction, and witness tampering. He was not charged, though, with conspiring against the United States. But his indictment reveals a clear picture of potential ties between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks. Joining me now is former Trump campaign advisor Sam Nunberg. Sam, great to have you with me. You're right here. This is the first time you actually heard those words from Roger Stone as he stepped out of his home just a moment ago. What are your thoughts on that? Calling this an egregious overreach by Mr. Mueller and saying that even his dogs are so traumatized they won't come out?
It seemed to me that it was pretty aggressive that they raided Roger's house like that. From what I understand, it was 39 FBI agents, and that they came there early in the morning, which fine is routine. But knowing Roger was expecting to be indicted, I am sure that he would have gone to. He was not going to flee the country, as Justice Breyer said, Francis. Nor was he going to destroy anything after he already knew he was going to be indicted. But that's up to the FBI. I mean, that's one of the issues, though, that people have complained about with this investigation, about how some of these people have been treated.
But does that surprise you in how he's coming out now and speaking and taking the tone that he has in the message that he's giving out there? He was your mentor.
Yes.
You had predicted that this was going to be coming.
Right.
Time and time again here. And so based on your knowledge about that in the Trump campaign, what does it tell you now that this is how he's coming out of it, and especially with these indictments?
Well, Roger here is now saying, look, Roger is going to not plead guilty. He's already said this, and I am sure Roger will want to take this case to trial just in the very instance because of Roger's personality that he will make the government have to prove their case. This will be something that people have not seen before. If you wanted to, it will be an O.J. Simpson type case for politics. What I would say is very, very critical. What Roger has just said, if you read the indictment, Francis, there's some part where Roger had contact with Steve Bannon. The part we're all talking about is the unnamed Trump advisors in July when Manafort, Gates are there, and who directed them. If he is saying none of that is true, then the government has to prove that, and that would go also to saying that Roger did not have the intent to lie to Congress because he was not really covering anything up in terms of not talking about Corsi.
Especially when we're talking about that word, directed, and this top line here.
Very interesting.
You know, very interesting about that. It's interesting, I know you talked about it before, because the question now is, what will it take? Will he get pushed so far to flip? And he said, even just in the past 24 hours, he's not going to bend, he's not going to fold, he's not going to do it. He was just going to fight this. And you said you could see him taking those years in jail. You could see him doing that because what'll happen after, I think you had mentioned earlier,
Roger
he would love the limelight afterwards.
Yeah, Roger is someone who, he even said yesterday, it's better to be infamous than
not famous.
I would also say it was very interesting, though, Francis, it was one of the shutdown, too. Remember, President Trump opened up the government, and then Speaker Pelosi starts tweeting about Roger Stone yesterday. This case has large implications, and that indictment, what he said in those paragraphs, have large implications to the conspiracy charge that the president will be facing in Congress. And Roger, for his part, as opposed to me, who I no longer have, has an affinity and a bond with the president that he will stand by him. He respects him, and he's a friend.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about the involvement here, because that's the question here. Where in all of this does the president fall, right? So we have this portion here in the indictment that says, quote, senior Trump campaign officials reached out to Stone to ask about information WikiLeaks was expected to release on Hillary Clinton. I want to play what Stone told Fox News about who those officials may have been, and we'll talk about it.
The Trump campaign official who directed Stone to find out about WikiLeaks was Donald Trump. No, it was not. There are several things in here in the indictment that are simply not true.
So who was it if it wasn't the president? Who was...
Well, I have to speculate about that because since it never happened, it appears to me that they have composed testimony for someone. Perhaps Rick Gates, perhaps Steve Bannon.
All right, so you just mentioned this. You were talking about that, but how far in there is the involvement? Could it be Donald Trump?
Well, I think, look, the short answer is we don't know.
Yeah.
We also, Mueller is very, very careful about how he drafts these indictments. That was put in there for a reason. I suspect that was put in there for a reason for Mueller's purpose because of coming indictments. That's a presumption. I have no obviously, direct knowledge of it. But in terms of Roger, that is a critical point. And if Roger says that this conversation did not happen, we'll see Roger's defense, Francis, then it would make sense that Roger did not lie to Congress because Roger just did not recall possibly the Corsi issue. What I think the indictment made the point of was that Roger, they're arguing, the Mueller special counsel is going to argue that because he was directed by the Trump campaign, he didn't want to disclose that he was having conversations with Corsi.
All right, I want to expand on something that you told my colleague, Aaron Melber, when you were on with him as far as Roger Stone colluding with Russia. Let's remind our viewers if they didn't see it.
Was he trying to collude? I think he was. I don't think he did. As I said, I think he conspired against himself. Would he have? Would he have gone? Look, I can't speak for him, but maybe he would have. That's exactly right. So, what I'm saying is, would he have met with Assange? If Assange is, I believe Assange is. Okay, I'm not arguing he isn't. Would he have met with Assange? Looked at WikiLeaks. Would he have strategized with Assange? Yes, he would have, but he didn't. He was desperate, and what he did was, I think, unfortunately for him, is one, obviously made himself a public target. Everybody has been talking about these tweets that he has done, the Podesta tweets, the tweets coming in October of 2016. You can see his explanation for it. But number two, what we do see from the indictment, Francis, is that he was trying to, but he didn't. I can't tell you if he did. I would think if he had to, I could see Roger having a camera and visiting with Julian Assange during the summer of 2016 because that is Roger's mystique. That is the idea of being relevant, being part of the ruckus of the election. But he didn't.
Talk a little bit more about that. It's fascinating because, again, as a guy who you work so closely with and know in the level that you do, and here he is coming out and knowing, you know, like we said, he self-proclaimed dirty trickster is this guy. You know, he has his tattoo in the back. Yesterday he comes out and he does the Nixon wave on here. So what are we going to see?
And I'm sure that picture will be framed in his house like 3 months from now, 2 months from now.
So there you go. So is this the Roger Stone that we're going to be seeing? whether or not there is going to be a collusion charge down the road, or if we see this, go to trial and he sticks with it.
Here's what I think, having, once again, because of being in that voluntary in the grand jury, being in the Senate Intel, I think that they have given a complete forensic to Roger Stone. If they thought that if they had evidence that Roger colluded with the Russians, or met with Julian Assange directly, they would have released it, or they would have waited further down the line in terms of the narrative that Mueller is building with these indictments. So what I do think, though, is, once again, assuming Roger has the means, he will defend himself, and this will be a spectacle of a trial, and that will go to a jury.
When you say means, doesn't he have the means?
Yeah, I certainly, I don't know his bank account, but I think he will have the means from public support through his legal defense fund. Yes, I think he will, because, look, he's already been attacked. Once again, Nancy Pelosi has called out the president based on this indictment.
Yeah.
Roger now is going to be a critical piece towards saving the Trump presidency.
It's interesting he came out in this video again just moments ago in the past hour. And again, I think it's fascinating that you're seeing and hearing it for the first time, because he's saying he's not intimidated. He goes back in. There's a little chuckle, there's a little smile here, and he goes on to say that he's not intimidated. What's he doing behind his closed doors now, today and in the days to come?
If I had to guess, he's strategizing. He's studying the indictment. Having other lawyers, other professionals, OB within the attorney-client privilege.
Strategizing for what outcome? For what is the?
I do not believe there is a chance that Roger would, in any case, cooperate with the government, especially because Roger has already publicly stated numerous times that he did not discuss WikiLeaks with the president. So therefore, I don't know how he could then offer anything to them. What I think is that Roger will put on a case to a jury, and he will fight this, and he will look for a fair trial.
Do you think that there's any part of this that he realizes that jail cell, jail time, prison would be part of his reality? In 20 plus, I believe, is the sentence.
I think 20 plus would be, actually, if they did that to him, I think that would be ridiculous. Okay, so
really,
well, for the amount of time, for what he's being charged with, how they would slice, if they do it concurrently, if they do it consecutively, I think that they should really have a little. The Justice Department and Mueller should have a little. They should have a little Rachmanis, or I don't know what the proper word is. Be a little, But what I would say is that I think he's willing to face the consequences. But I mean, this whole idea, I've been hearing that he can get 20 years, 10 years, 15. I think normally people say this is like a 4-year, 2 or 3 years. He knows. I think he's accepted the fact he's going to be indicted, as he said publicly in August.
Yeah.
Right, last year. So I think probably even earlier than that. You could not have called in as many people of his in his sphere as they did, and not even ask him a single question. And his lawyers publicly said that they had reached out to the special counsel's office and never been contacted back. I hope he does get better lawyers, though, I would say.
And you also mentioned on MSNBC earlier that if he does do time, you can see him coming out, giving speeches, and doing the whole Roger Stone thing.
Sure. I mean, look at Jay Gordon Liddy. Look at a lot of these Nixon people that stayed part of Republican politics after they came out. They nationally syndicated radio shows, and they were around the arena, as Nixon used to call it, in the arena. So I personally hope that doesn't happen, to be honest with you.
Tell me why. Why is that the case, that you don't think that happens?
I said I hope it doesn't. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the case. I think Roger is a victim of him. We were mistreated by Trump in the beginning of this campaign. I was fired. Roger quit. We were not treated. Somebody else was brought in. Trump is not a loyal person, but Roger's very loyal to Trump.
So you think he was victimized?
I don't want to say he was. I think that he. It's tough to say he's victim. Well, I think that he put himself in a position that he wanted to ingratiate himself and continue to get Donald Trump, help Donald Trump. But let me just tell you something. I mean, Donald Trump those people there didn't want anything to do with him, even if Trump was talking to him. And I found that very disrespectful myself.
Sandberg, thank you so much for the extra time that you spent with us. I appreciate all that and your insights, too. Thank you. All right, I want to bring in now NBC investigative reporter Anna Schechter, former federal prosecutor Matthew Jacobs, and also a white-collar criminal defense attorney and former chair of the National Bar Association's PAC, Scott Bolden. Anna, I'll start with you here. You're here in our discussion. You heard Sam Nunberg's thoughts on whom the senior Trump officials mentioned in the indictment may be. So what's your take on that?
Well, Sam really knows Roger Stone, and Sam worked for Trump. So I think he's provided some pretty good analysis throughout this entire process. This has been a really long time coming, and you were both right to point out that the most intriguing part of this indictment is what's really not said. Who is that person who directed the senior Trump campaign advisor to contact Roger Stone? And you can sort of read between the lines and deduce that Mueller is actually moving towards revealing that. He probably has the answer to that. Now, Roger Stone can say, well, it definitely wasn't Trump, but we really don't know, and a lot remains to be seen.
Yeah, Scott, I want to ask you, you heard this conversation here. Nunberg said that Stone probably tried to collude with Russia, but failed. So what's your takeaway on that, the legal implications, and how hard is it to prove intent here?
Well, you've got the indictment, so if he failed to collude, he wasn't charged with collusion, but he was charged with false statements, he was charged with witness tampering and obstructing a federal proceeding. And again, he may not have been charged with collusion, but why is he making these false statements and tampering with witnesses? I don't think he failed, and I think your prior guest hit it right on the head. Who directed senior members of the campaign to reach out to get that information? Stolen information. Had they obtained it, it would have been violation of federal law. Now, who directs senior people in a campaign? The candidate himself, unless there's somebody more senior between them and Donald Trump. And what's more interesting is we know Donald Trump and how he manages his businesses and his campaign. Nothing. And I mean nothing happens in that campaign or his businesses without him knowing it. So it's not right to prejudge or to presume, but watch the walls tie closer, and the next indictment or the next shoe to drop is who directed those senior people to reach out to Stone, to reach out to WikiLeaks.
Yeah, and that may be what's next. Matthew, you heard here Sam's perspective in saying that he doesn't believe Roger Stone will cooperate with Mueller because of his loyalty to the president, but then we've seen that. Michael Cohen, perfect example. I mean, say it again and again. He would take a bullet for the president. So do you see him cooperating?
Well, obviously we don't know what's going to happen, but yes, time and again, and this happens across all sorts of federal prosecutions. You have people who start out saying they'll never cooperate, and once they face the reality of potentially going to jail, see their livelihoods impacted, see their reputations impacted, people turn around and suddenly start cooperating. There's a lot of pressure on Roger Stone right now. You know, as Scott said, he's charged with obstruction of justice and perjury. The reason that prosecutors choose those crimes is they're juries. They're easier to prove. They have a lot of jury appeal, and why do people lie? People lie because they are covering up. I mean, we've seen a lot of those kind of charges throughout the Mueller investigation, and we have seen people fold and cooperate. And you are talking about people, you know, these are not lowlifes. These are people who are sophisticated. They've got reputations built up over many years. They have fortunes, and they're putting it all at risk to make false statements. It does suggest to you that there is something significant that is being hidden.
Yeah, and we know, Anna, the charges here that we're talking about, but I want to focus on the charges that are not included. They're conspiracy here. What does that tell you about the investigation and how significant the indictment is, even without the conspiracy?
Well, this indictment is reminiscent of some of the other indictments that we've seen, where lying to Congress is a part of it, and that's something that Mueller is not shying away from going after. Now, as each indictment comes out, whether it's Manafort, Cohen, here we see Stone's, we're seeing a narrative being painted that Mueller is still, the real target is the Trump campaign, senior officials in the Trump campaign, but we haven't seen anything laid out that absolutely proves collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians who hacked the DNC, who arranged for the Trump Tower, and who were working on Trump Tower Moscow deals. There's a lot that we don't know yet. There is a lot of smoke, and we'll see what comes of it. There was a lot of smoke around Roger Stone for many months, but, you know, we didn't know if Mueller was going to actually pull the trigger and indict him, and he did on Friday. That was a big day. Every time one of these comes down, this is a big moment. This is a public document, public record that lays out the facts. And we've known that Roger Stone was texting and emailing two associates trying to get them to figure out what Julian Assange has. We've been reporting on that for months. But here is a very clear narrative, a timeline that goes through all of those messages and alleges lying to Congress, and that's pretty clear in the indictment.
All right, Scott, I want to ask you here, look at the New York Times report that during the presidential campaign and the transition, the president and at least 17 campaign officials and advisors had contacts with Russia and WikiLeaks, with more than 100 exchanges and meetings. So do those exchanges, meetings, contacts equal crimes? And we should add the New York Times is using its reporting in court documents and report there to Congress with that.
Well, I'm not sure it proves that it committed a crime, but the one thing that's always fascinated me as a former prosecutor and white-collar criminal defense lawyer now is, what is a U.S. presidential campaign during and after the campaign doing, having 100 contacts with a foreign government that is an enemy of the United States of America? Why? Can anybody come up with one reason, one legitimate reason why, if I'm running for president, I'm talking to Russia, I've got these contacts with Russia when I'm trying to be the president of the United States? It makes no sense. And so if you follow the lies, right, you're going to get to the top of the pyramid prosecution and who your target is.
Yeah, we only knew the answer to that one. Thank you, Scott Bowman, Anna Schechter, Matthew Jacobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Trump is tweeting to dispute any notion that he conceded in his battle for the wall. Is the truce just a 21-day stall before he declares a national emergency?
Well, what are you doing here? Sophia? I guess I'm going to take you to Walmart, so when I get back, then I'll give you money and you can take the car, okay?
Posh Eye Wipers. The calm in the storm.
I switched to Liberty Mutual because they let me customize my insurance. And as a fitness junkie, I customize everything. Like my bike and my calves.
Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Hey, Daryl, would you choose the network rated #1 in the nation by the experts or the one awarded by the people? Correct. You don't have to choose, because,
Switch to the network awarded by RootMetrics and JD Power. Now get $300 off on best phones.
A migraine hope. To be there for the good and not so good. For the mundane, the awe-inspiring, the heart racing, the heartbreaking. That's what life is all about. Showing up. Unless migraine steals your chance to say, I am here. That's why we created Aimovig, a preventive treatment for migraine in adults. One dose, once a month. Aimovig is proven to reduce the number of monthly migraine days. For some, that number can be cut in half or more. The most common side effects are pain, redness or swelling at the injection site, and constipation. These are your days. What will each one bring? Doesn't matter. As long as you can say, I am here. Talk to your doctor about preventing migraine with Aimovig and be there more.
This is cellulose acetate, a plant-based material that's not only extremely durable, but also quite flexible, making it ideal for Warby Parker glasses, which, by the way, start at $95, including prescription lenses. Try 5 pairs for free at warbyparker.com. Oh yeah, about those prescription lenses. Warby Parker glasses come standard with custom-cut polycarbonate lenses that have been treated with scratch-resistant and anti-reflective coatings. Nice. Try 5 pairs for free at warbyparker.com.
10 years ago, I had an undiagnosed heart condition, and erectile dysfunction was actually the first sign that something was wrong.
Luckily, I'm a doctor, an expert in sexual health, and Zach's dad.
Not everyone has a doctor in the house, and some health conditions can be really tough to talk about. We started Roman to change that.
Now you can go online and chat with a physician.
And if treatment is right for you, we'll ship FDA-approved medication right to your door. If you're experiencing ED, hair loss, cold sores or other issues, let's take care of it.
Over on Capitol Hill, this dueling set of proposals that's coming up on the Senate floor. Most of that was sort of a function of time, so that senators would.
Hallie, I apologize. You were going to listen here to the majority leader.
I'm sorry, Hallie.
We are live on MSNBC, sir. What progress have you made in there?
Washington feels more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask the tough questions, left and right, and help you make sense of it all.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government.
What? Shutdown with a smile on his face. He has since spent time on Twitter defending that decision. And this is Mike McCarran joins us now from Capitol Hill. Mike, the president seems to now issue a warning.
Well, that's right. Nancy Pelosi and Democrats, Francis, won this round, and they won it very convincingly. But the certainly not over. There is 3 weeks to go now. This agreement, not a dime for the president's wall. 35 days of shutdown, the longest in American history. He settled for something he could have had before Christmas, before the shutdown, without all the anguish and pain felt by the 800,000 federal workers and umpteen thousand contractors. And yet here we are back to square one. But the president is tweeting today, interim, this 21 days now. February 15th is the date. Here's what he says. 21 days goes very quickly. Negotiations with Democrats will start immediately. Will not be easy to make a deal. Both parties very dug in. The case for national security has been greatly enhanced by what has been happening at the border and through dialogue. We will build the wall, but Francis, it's hard to see where the incentive for Democrats is. Nancy Pelosi has called it immoral. They stood their ground. Again, they won this round. Hard to see what their incentive politically is to give the president any money for the wall whatsoever. He has held out the possibility of declaring a national emergency. Remember, he had rejected that for weeks. Yesterday, pointedly putting it back on the table. That's where we may end up. All eyes now on these House and Senate negotiators as they try to hammer out a compromise.
And that date circled on our calendar, February 15th. Mike McCarran for us. Thank you.
Okay.
Join me now, Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief for The Hill, and also Gabby Orr, the White House reporter for Politico. To both of you, welcome as we get started with you, Bob. Is there a clear consensus here on who won, who lost politically here, the president or the Democrats?
Democrats clearly won this round. There's no doubt. The president kept saying he's not going to cave, and he did bend. I think it was the pressure of the government shutdown affecting airlines and affecting so many lives. So I was actually surprised he didn't declare an emergency. And the problem with declaring an emergency in 3 weeks is that an emergency, you got to do it right now. And he's been talking about this for a while. So, but without a doubt, Democrats won this round, and it really starts the year. That's why it was so important for both parties of who's going to win this battle. And Democrats won round one.
Yeah, well, Gabby, does the president get any E for effort here when it comes to being the one to say, all right, I'm going to end this thing? You got to consider his approval now stands at 37% according to this new poll. So at least over the next 3 weeks until that February 15th, will he get any credit? Or, you know what, is he going to be blamed time and time again?
Well, if the last 24 hours have been any indication of whether or not he's credit among his supporters,
What the hell were you doing? No, it wasn't Julie, it was you.
And supporters who say that, okay, now it's time for Democrats to really prove that they will come to the table, they will negotiate and somehow secure border security funds or in those negotiations secure funding for a border barrier that would be sufficient to the president's demands. However, you know, I was speaking with former White House officials, campaign aides, people who are still very loyal to the president yesterday, and this, as Bob was saying, was just seen as a massive win for Democrats and especially for Nancy Pelosi. One former Trump advisor told me that she basically took everything off the menu and left Trump waiting with the bill. And so it's not playing well among his supporters at the moment.
Yeah, and we also have the reaction there when it comes to this. And the Democrat Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was asked yesterday whether the president thought that he could get what he wanted.
Careful with the
Here's
one
what he
that
said, and I
has
want to ask you about
coffee.
it.
Julie, how's
I
busy
think he
first?
thought no one should ever
give me the
underestimate the
mail,
speaker, as Donald Trump has learned. But in addition to that, and I think Nancy would be the first, our Democrats stay totally unified.
You hear the words, you hear the chuckle. Some will call it
Richard
hands
Holcomb
gloating in the
is
press
in your
conference. So
bills
what did
already.
you see there, Bob? What was going on behind the scenes?
Well, listen, I mean, you think about it. 12 months ago, she was scrambling to get the votes to become speaker. Compared to her first go-round, she's not as powerful as she was. She was voted unanimously in 2007, had some defections, but obviously became speaker.
Oh, about
She
your
played this way.
car?
She played it strong. I was questioning the whole State of the Union back and forth. That could have backfired on her. It ended up working for her. And as she says, that's their power. That's the Democrats' power. And I think it was smart for Trump to try to get some defections. It just didn't work. And the last point here is that Republicans should have done the wall 2 years ago. They had the House, they had the Senate, who was his top priority, and congressional leaders kept telling him, you'll get your wall, and now we're in this fix.
All right, before we let you go, I got to ask you, Gabby, NBC News reported this week that two White House security specialists who rejected Jared Kushner's application for top secret security clearance, but then they were overruled by one supervisor here. There were concerns about potential foreign influence on Jared Kushner. So is it correct to say that that doesn't happen, Gabby?
No, it's totally unprecedented, and I think that was indicated largely in this article that there had never been a situation in which multiple career officials had said that a person should not receive a top secret security clearance, and that person went on to receive that clearance. I'm certainly curious to see how the president reacts to this. I asked him actually last year if he thought Jared Kushner should be able to get a security clearance, and he punted to then Chief of Staff John Kelly and said, "Oh, well, we'll let him handle it." So there are a lot of questions about how the White House is actually vetting people for security clearances and handing those things out.
Yeah, it wasn't just him. I think 30 other people with the untraditional backgrounds, I think is how they put it. All right, Gabby Warren and Bob Cusack, thank you.
Thanks, Francis.
Growing human tragedy in Venezuela, America stands to announce that country's leader. Why do they blame him for what's the impossible living conditions there? Well, you'll want to hear from my next guest, who's been there.
A New York federal judge sentencing Cohen to 3 years in prison.
We're following a number of fast-paced developing stories this morning.
I hear it in the background. She's watching it too, saying, and this is where.
I've never seen that before.
Our grandparents checked their smartphones 0 times a day. Times change. Eyes haven't. That's why there's Ocuvite. Screen light, sunlight, longer hours. Eyes today are stressed. But Ocuvite has vital nutrients to help protect them. Ocuvite, high nutrition for today.
Introducing new Fresh Start from Nutrisystem. Lose up to 13 pounds in your first month, guaranteed.
Lose your first 13 pounds now with new Fresh Start from Nutrisystem.
Your 13 can turn into 20, 30, 50, even more. I'm Marie and I lost 50 pounds with Nutrisystem. You'll see results right away. Count, measure meetings? No, not with Nutrisystem.
Order your 28-day program right now and save 40%. We'll rush you Fresh Start. Get specially designed meals, plus a week of all new Fresh Start shakes free. High protein, designed to burn fat, with probiotics to shrink your belly.
Bye-bye, belly fat.
Plus FedEx shipping free. With Fresh Start, lose up to 13 pounds now. Lose weight now. Money back guaranteed. Millions of people have lost weight on Nutrisystem, and you can too.
Your first 13 pounds? Gone.
Go online or call 877-97 right now and save 40%, plus get probiotic shakes free.
You work hard to build a better life and a better world. Now you can do both. Why did you think it's aspiration. Aspiration helps you spend and save with a conscience. And aspiration trusts you to pay only the fee you think we deserve, even if it's 0. So use any in the world for free. Switch at aspiration.com. Save money, save the planet. With the Grubhub delivery app, if you want it all, you can get it all. Grubhub, restaurants you love, delivered.
These folks, they don't have time to go to the post office.
They have businesses to grow, customers to care for, lives to get home to. They use Stamps.com. Print discounted postage for any letter, any package, anytime, right from your computer. All the amazing services of the post office, only cheaper. Get our special TV offer, a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale. Go to Stamps.com/try and never go to the post office again.
With the money I've made on Poshmark, I've been able to pay for all our family's vacations.
I could pay for my wedding just on what I've made from Poshmark.
I've made over $10,000 and I was able to buy my new car.
Download the free Poshmark app now.
I had my dream career and loads of student debt. So I went to Credible.com and in 3 minutes had actual rates from multiple lenders and I saved thousands of dollars.
Visit Credible.com to see how much you could save on your student loans.
New today, the showdown between the United States and Venezuela moving to the United Nations Security Council. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called the rest of the world to join the U.S. in recognizing Juan Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela. But while European nations are endorsing Guaido, countries like China, Turkey, Cuba, and Russia are not.
I spoke this morning about Cuban security and Russian influence, Russian interference. We want the Venezuelan people to have their say. And so the Russians have chosen to support the Maduro regime. I hope they'll change their way. I hope they will come to see that the rightful people to run this country are those that the Venezuelan people chose.
Joining me now, Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico and former U.S. ambassador to the UN. Ambassador, thank you for your time here as we delve into this humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. It started years ago, and you were there as an election monitor when Maduro was elected in 2014. So talk about the U.S. involvement and taking action now. Why at this point? And is this the right action?
Well, so far, I've been a critic of the Trump foreign policy across the board, but here in Venezuela, I believe they're making the right moves. One, rolling the dice and endorsing and recognizing this young 35-year-old leader of the opposition because the opposition was divided. And now going to the Security Council to get public support, country support, to recognize this new leader. Now, a lot of Latin American countries are backing us. So is the Organization of American States. But Francis, 2 things we should not do. One, military intervention in Venezuela by the U.S. And I think also we should be very, very careful about making sure that the Venezuelan military bring a dialogue with them and push for free and fair elections. I think Maduro would lose, and this young man, the opposition that is now united, would win. So I think diplomacy, not military force, not oil sanctions either. We get a lot of oil from Venezuela. The price of gasoline would go up. A lot of refineries on the Gulf Coast would be affected. So just be careful. Push diplomatically. Isolate Maduro as we're doing.
Help us understand, though, this man, Maduro, is when you see that he's there, this regime is illegitimate, the election is sham. You know him. You spent time with him. You saw him last month at the inauguration of Mexican President Lopez Obrador. So who is Maduro? What do we need to understand about him as far as the human suffering and how his involvement and what the toll of the human suffering is from that?
Well, he took over. He was foreign minister for Chavez. That's where I knew him, working on hostages, trying to get American hostages out. That's where I first met him. He was then subsequently elected. I was an election observer. It was a real iffy whether he really won, but it was very close. But then, repression came, food shortages, the economy went and tanked, and he kept getting the military to back him up. They still back him up so far.
Maduro, Ambassador, was that because all these things that you're saying that rolled into the position we're seeing now, was that because of Maduro?
Yeah, he liked his power. He liked to consolidate power, and he knew he was losing public support. I think in a free and fair election, he would have lost, but he assumed power again about a month ago when he won another election, which was fraudulent. So I think what the the key is let the Venezuelan people decide the fate of Maduro. And the key there is Venezuelan military. If they turn on him, and so far they haven't, then I think you're going to see a change in leadership there, or maybe Maduro leaves. But I think the way out, what we should all strive for, is to get the Venezuelan military leaders that presently support him and say, look, have a free and fair election. Let the Venezuelan people decide. You guys supervise the elections. Make sure they're fair. That's the way out. And I think this young opposition leader, who I believe has a lot of potential and is getting a lot of international support, and we made the right move in rolling the dice and recognizing him as the de facto leader.
Very quickly, sir, how do we see that when we know that some outlets have reported Venezuelans have lost an average of 24 pounds last year because of food shortages? And you're saying we're not going to be able to see, a change here militarily if they decide to overthrow him before Guaido gets in the way. What do you see happening? Or what needs to happen for that result?
What I see happening is the Venezuelan people, the Venezuelan military, are going to see that the dire economic straits of Venezuela are going to be the engine that will get Maduro out. The people have turned against them. And I think the administration was smart also. They brought in Elliot Abrams, who I had worked with in the Congress on Nicaragua issues, to advise on Venezuela. This is good that they're bringing sort of the moderate Republican Bush foreign policy advisors in. I think that's good. What's going to happen? I think Maduro's support is going to erode, but we have to be smart. Don't get involved militarily. Let the Venezuelan people decide. Free and fair elections is what we need.
All right, thank you. Former Governor and Ambassador Phil Richardson, we appreciate your being with us. Thanks. What the papers are saying about the shutdown deal, some of the editorial. Those details next.
I used to book my hotel room on those travel sites, but there was always a catch. Like somehow you'd wind up getting less. But now I book at Hilton.com and I get all these great perks. I got to select my room from the floor plan. You know I'm good at picking stuff. Free Wi-Fi, laptop by the pool's a bold choice, and the price match guarantee.
How do you know all this? Magical Hilton Fairy?
It's just here on the Hilton app. Just available to the public, so. Book at Hilton.com and get the Hilton price match guarantee. If you find a lower rate, we match it and give you 25% off that stay.
Heartburn and gas? Fight both fast. Tums Chewy Bites with Gas Relief. All-in-one relief of heartburn and gas. Tums Chewy Bites with Gas Relief.
Have you ever wondered how ancient humans survived pandemics, how early sailors navigated using the sky, or why the hottest stars are blue in color? Now, there's an easy way to discover interesting people, places, and ideas in every category imaginable. The Great Courses Plus, where your access to thousands of topics is unlimited, and keen insight is provided by the world's leading professors and experts. Start your free trial offer now.
From the founder of Discovery Channel comes a new independent streaming service, Curiosity Stream, home of groundbreaking documentaries and award-winning original series. Follow your curiosity. This is Curiosity Stream.
Tina, you are so right. Tina, you're a genius. I know. All right, talk to you later.
Are these stools new?
Yeah, I just got them.
What about the vanity?
Were you upstairs?
No. Who's Tina? Your new best friend? Your shopping pal?
Susie, it's Wayfair.
Oh!
She doesn't have a new BFF. She's got Wayfair.
Tina?
Here come again. Looking better than a body has a right to. And shaking me up.
Applebee's All You Can Eat is back. Now with shrimp. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Curious. What is it, Doc? Well, I'm not quite sure. But I'd like to prescribe my proprietary elixir. Dr. Turner
See what there is in you, Dr. Turner. Yes. And you say this stuff works. Well, it works for me.
What if doctors were like most financial advisors?
You take care.
Creative planning is different. We never sell proprietary products. In fact, we don't even offer them. Call for a free, no-obligation consultation.
We are going to wrestle with the facts here. Yes, there is a lot on the table. You were telling them the truth about a lie.
No. Well, okay, so yes.
Yes.
It's not about politics. It's not about being a Republican or a Democrat.
People are talking about whether they're under attack, their identities.
Yeah.
We've gone from Mo Money, Mo Problems to Mo Mueller, Mo Problems.
The Beat with Ari Melber, weeknights at 6 on MSNBC.
What Nancy Pelosi said about Roger Stone's indictment might make President Trump worry about job security.
The comfortable, the familiar. Neither one of these will ever give you a new perspective on things or make your beat. Comfortable isn't something you'll tell your grandkids about. And familiar, well, that'll be there when you get home. But until then, there's a world that needs exploring. Getting out of your comfort zone. It's possible in a family of Hyundai SUVs.
Donuts, niçoise salad.
Delivered for 95,000 restaurants nationwide. If you want it all, you can get it all. Grubhub. Restaurants you love delivered. My mom loves to volunteer, but I worry because she recently had a fall. So I got her the new Lively Mobile from Great Call. It's a mobile medical alert device with fall detection. It's so reassuring knowing she can get help anywhere with just the press of a button.
In any unsafe or uncertain situation, you'll be immediately connected to a highly trained agent who can get you the help you need.
For a limited time, get 25% off plus the first month free at Best Buy and Walmart Pharmacy.
I always wanted to speak French, and I just put it off and I put it off and I put it off. And then I went, I've got to start at it now or I'll never get it done. And that's when I found Babbel.
The Babbel app is great because it's intuitive, it's interactive, and it's right at my fingertips.
I never knew how easy learning a new language could be.
They start by teaching you words, phrases, matching them with pictures. It's easy. And then the sentences get a little bigger, and they put you into a simulated conversation, and you're understanding what's going on. Now I'm speaking French with confidence. Au français, je parle français avec confiance.
So, which language do you want to speak today? Now you can try Babbel free and see just how quickly you can start speaking a new language.
In just a few weeks, I was confident enough to have an entire conversation in Spanish. Las gambas saben deliciosas.
Tu español es perfecto.
Oh, gracias.
So try Babbel free. Go to Babbel.com or download the app today.
You work hard to build a better life and a better world. Now you can do both. By ditching your big bank and switching to Aspiration. Aspiration helps you spend and save with a conscience. And Aspiration trusts you to pay only the fee you think we deserve, even if it's zero. So use any ATM in the world for free. Switch at aspiration.com. Save money, save the planet.
This time, it's his turn. You have 4.3 minutes to yourself. This calls for a taste of cheesecake. Philadelphia Cheesecake Cups. Rich, creamy cheesecake with real strawberries. Find them with the refrigerated desserts.
Shaquem, get in here. Take your razor, yeah? Right. Up and down, other side to side. Shaquem, you got it? Come on, get back. Shaquem, you're second behind your brother. Stay focused. Can't nobody beat you. Can't nobody beat you. All work, baby. Okay, on. You got it. Alright, you got it, Shaquem. Alright, let me see.
His motto, move fast and break things.
Think about that saying and you understand a lot about Facebook.
But if Facebook used your privacy and jeopardized America's democracy for profit, Reminders, Facebook with Ari Melber, tomorrow at 9 on MSNBC.
I'm in for the fight of my life. I will not quit. I will not fold. I will not bend. I will not bear false witness against the president. I intend to fight.
A defiant Roger Stone last night after being released on a $250,000 bond. He was charged with 7 counts, including obstruction, lying to Congress, and witness tampering. Let's bring in MSNBC political analyst Jonathan Alter, columnist for the Daily Beast and director of the documentary Breslin and Hamill, Deadline Artist, that airs Monday at 8 p.m. on HBO. Atino Amara, former president for Young Democrats of America, and former House GOP Committee Counsel Sophia Nelson, opinion writer for USA Today. Welcome to all of you as we get started with you, Jonathan. Part of Roger Stone's defense is that these are process-related charges, so can he make that case here?
Well, we're going to find out, but one thing I would be very leery of is punditry that suggests he's going to flip. You know, it could happen, but I've known Roger for 30 years, and I wouldn't bet on it. You know, somebody was saying, well, you might want to be John Dean. He despises John Dean, and I think he's much more likely to identify with somebody like G. Gordon Liddy, who went to jail, did not flip during Watergate, and then he came out and he was a big celebrity on the right, had his own radio talk show host. So he'll fight this. He'll try to beat it. He'll have some good legal help, but if he loses and does time, he'll be fine with that.
Yeah, well, I want to take that further, Tima. If he does time, he'll be fine with that, and then what? If you agree.
No, I mean, I think Stone is an interesting character in that he's going to, you know, fight this all the entire way. Certainly he's been doing that since last night, certainly all of this time. I think we're going to see how this plays out. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's too, you know, early to figure out whether he's going to do time or not, but I don't think that he's going to willingly flip. Not willingly, on the president as it stands right now, given, you know, he holds himself to a high level of, you know, being close and loyal to people going back to his days as a young Republican national president.
Yeah, Sophia, I'm wondering if a conspiracy charge would change that at all, because that was one that we have not seen. There's obstruction of witness, tampering, making false statements, no conspiracy. Could that be used later when it comes to that? And could we see things change and prove Jonathan wrong?
Two thoughts. I'm going to be a little contrary here. One, I agree with Jonathan that I don't think flip is the word I'd use, but let me say this. Roger Stone is a man in his 70s. He's had a good life. He's married. He's got his dogs that he talks about, right? When you get to that season of your life, jail is not where you want to end your life. And I think that when you're looking, as you mentioned, a conspiracy charge, also collusion, I'm more interested in the person who directed him that's in the indictment. That's what I'm interested in. I think that's what we're all interested in. And I think that if the feds coming to your home at the crack of dawn and rustling you out of bed and you looking at prison time in your 70s, I think that that's something you'd have to think long and hard about. You can talk trash about being loyal and you could say you're going to hang in there, but life changes, again, depending on the season you're in. And I think that there is an opportunity, if they put enough pressure on him, to get him to at least give up that person who directed him. Perhaps they already know who that is. And I think that you could look at him maybe cutting a deal. Flipping, I don't know if it's outright flipping, but we'll see.
Yeah, Jonathan, what do you think about that? What do you think the strategy is here? You were saying, yeah, he's thinking, you know, he's lawyering up. He's getting his strategy on a roll. But where is he? You don't see it happening, though. Sophia definitely does, not in the flipping sense.
First of all, I don't know. I mean,
sure,
you know, a lot of things can happen. I don't want to be categorical in saying that he won't cooperate, but it is striking that conspiracy is not part of this indictment. It can be added later on.
Right.
And that is the core of this case, not perjury, not obstruction of justice. The core of the investigation is conspiracy.